All right, I recently read The Invisible Man. Let's talk about it a little bit. So, the thing about this man is he's invisible. No. So, this is kind of a lesser known, not really lesser known, but slightly lesser known book compared to the other books by H.G. Wells, right? Like The War of the Worlds and The Time Machine. So, this one definitely ranks behind those two, but it's still pretty famous and there's been various adaptations and so forth. But I had never read the book. I had seen like part of a movie version. I had maybe read part of the book a long time ago. So, I had this vague idea of what the story was. Obviously, the premise is obvious, but what the story was, I had a vague idea. But when I read it, what really surprised me about it, that this guy was he was very similar to Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. He's kind of this crazy scientist or whatever, first of all. And the reason it's similar to Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde is because he starts out as this scientist figuring things out, and then because of what happens to him through his experiments, he kind of goes crazy and becomes violent and starts acting out in various ways. And kind of becomes this psychopath or whatever, or sociopath, or I guess is probably a better term to use. I thought that was interesting. Now, I think Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde was written a little bit earlier than The Invisible Man. So this can't be the original, archetype or whatever of the crazy scientist, but it is certainly one of the early crazy scientists in literature. So that's one thing about it that I thought was interesting. And he has a lot of things to say. He's a little on edge, he's a little insane, and he's potentially violent, and he doesn't really care about other people. So those aspects, I thought it was interesting how prominently featured those were, and I didn't really expect that. So what about the book overall? Is it worth reading? Well, it's very short, so I think it is worth reading because it's kind of a fun writing style. The character himself is kind of fun just to see, and kind of how he, articulates things. And then it's set in England in the 1800s or something. So you get some Britishisms or some Englishisms or some whatever you want to call it. So that part's kind of fun too. And then it's fun to compare it with some of the other stories by the same author and some other stories by contemporary authors as well. So overall, I would say, yeah, check out The Invisible Man. I'm not sure if any of the movies are good. I've seen just the beginning of the black and white movie where the guy's walking through the snow in his mummy outfit, but I don't know. But the book is pretty cool. So I would say give it a quick read.